Well, this is an encore, so thanks again to have invited me there to give this presentation. Although here at our latitudes, we are somewhat approaching the end of hiking season, although I should add that the best part is yet to come. Which is always the fall, because you have these beautiful clear days and no humidity, no risk for thunderstorms. That means usually fantastic hiking conditions. And I can just confirm from our latitudes where Baljeet and I are sitting in Switzerland, it's absolutely stunning. We had snow levels coming down, much like on this picture here behind my photo, that came down to 1,200 meters. But given the sun that's still fairly strong in October, we plan some decent hikes next week. Is that right, Baljeet? We're going to do something, right? Yes, that's the spirit. And perhaps some of you are lucky enough to dial in from some hut if you're on a mountain trekking from hut to hut. And if that's the case, please identify yourself so you can give some real experience input during this session, how it is up there. But chances are you're probably more likely ever so cozily putting yourself in your home office, leaning back. Oh, there is Nuno. Hey, Nuno. And so therefore, let's dive right in. And we want to make this as joyful as we possibly can. Let me see, I have to get rid of this. And I thought to do this, it's nice to put yourself in a mood for hiking. And the best way oftentimes to do this is by some compelling quotes from some well-known hikers, or at least folks who do like to hike and don't do it regularly. And here they are. And some of these are more thought-provoking than others. One of my favorites is the one to the upper left. We don't stop hiking because we grow old. We grow old because we stop hiking. I mean, what more evidence do you need? You have to go out there to enjoy it, but also it really is, in my opinion, it's kind of a rejuvenating experience just to be in sync with nature, you know, wherever that may be, in the mountains, in the forests, along rivers. It just inspires you, gives you great ideas, you know, makes the bonds with friends that much stronger, because you have some oftentimes fairly substantial, some deep conversations that you simply do not have out there in the flatlands or in the city environment, where we are all distracted by the day-to-day activities. So I think that's one of the quotes I really love a lot. Or even the one from T.S. Eliot in the middle. Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. So if you don't try to test your physical and psychological limits, which you oftentimes will do when you do some decent hiking, you kind of miss out on a lot of the, shall we say, cutting edge experiences of life. And you also get to know yourself, how far you can push yourself, which once again will come full circle, because in life, the best things are not for free. There's no free lunch. So if you know how far you can carry yourself in a demanding nature environment or mountain environment, the more likely it is you also develop the disciplines that go with it in your personal life and in your professional life. So I think that many collateral benefits that come along with hiking. And of course, upper right is a beautiful one. It's never too late in life to have a genuine adventure, which of course does not only apply to hiking, I may want to add, but if you have a kind of an adventurous spirit, you like the outdoors, you like to push yourself to the limits, I think hiking is one of those disciplines that lends itself to precisely doing that. And I also like this one here at the bottom middle part. After a day's walk, everything has twice its usual value. And that really starts with something as simplistic as enjoying a cold beer after you have an 8-hour trek behind you. And it's just, oh, it never tastes so good. But it also means oftentimes a deepening friendships, because again, it brings people closer together, whether this is a couple or whether this is a group of hikers. It's just a great bonding experience, hiking all together. So moving on, I would like to also mention an inspiring book that you may want to pick up. It's from Nietzsche, and it's called Hiking with Nietzsche. And in that book, he really touches on so many amazing parallels and analogies between life of our, our day-to-day existence, really. And the analogies are well drawn to hiking, the experience of going up, going down, taking in the beauty of nature and so forth. And in this book, I handpicked these 10 hiker truths and life lessons, which he really discusses in beautiful ways. And all of these are kind of self-explanatory. But as we said earlier, number two, this one, perseverance pays. Like in real life, if you do not have a goal or a focus or a discipline to reach your goals, it typically is a futile exercise. So I think hiking teaches us that very much, because you got to be smart in how you allocate your resources to reach your goal ultimately. And that's very much the same in our personal and professional lives as well. And even number three is a good one. Nature is powerful and teaches you humility. And I think it's very clear that nature really doesn't need us as humans, but it's definitely the case vice versa. We certainly cannot exist without nature or a strong bond to nature. And when you're out there, this sort of lesson is very clear in many ways. And good old Sir Edmund Hillary, who first climbed Mount Everest, he also said, it's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. Again, this goes sort of back to the analogy I talked earlier, that it really pushes you oftentimes to your limits of how you reach the peak. You may have altitude sickness, you may be dehydrated, you may have blisters, yet you just have this iron will to get there. I mean, not at any cost, of course, but you push yourself typically to reach your objective that you have set for yourself or that you have set with your team. And of course, one of the iron principles of hiking is always that you're only as strong as the weakest link in the team. And it also teaches you humility and solidarity, because if you are like 100 meters underneath the peak and suddenly one of your team members has hydration or altitude sickness, you're forced to go back. It's painful because you're that close, but at the end of the day, the principle of solidarity always overrules ambition. Let's put it that way. And I think that's another life lesson, both be that in the working place, in working teams, and certainly on the mountain when it's a matter of life and death oftentimes, if you go to the extreme. And I like this one too, by the way, this one from Edmund Hillary. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That kind of goes back to the principle of solidarity, because together you are stronger. You can help each other. You can give each other encouragement to reach your target. If you want to do a high-speed hike, I do this a lot myself just to get in shape for ski season, let's say. There, it's all about performance. It's all about speed. It's all about getting in shape for a goal. But you're much better off to do this on your own, because clearly you don't do this to enjoy. You do this for performance only. So that's another interesting point. Just a few points about myself. So, I really have the credentials to talk about what I'm talking here. I'm not some greenhorn in the mountains. Clearly, I do regular hikes, my God, as far as I can remember. It's really one of my biggest passion in life. In the winter, it's ski touring. In the summer, it's obviously hiking. I'm a member, an active one, of the Sierra Club in California, as well as the SAC, the Swiss Alpine Club, which has a huge infrastructure, by the way, in the Alps of huts, where you can do hut trekking over weeks at a time. I'm familiar with hiking predominantly in the Alps, the US Rockies, and also the California Sierras, mainly, but a few other ranges along the way. Other outdoor activities are listed here: heli skiing, lake snowing, tennis, biking. I organize every once in a while group hikes of no more than 6 fit hikers. So these are pretty decent, pretty long, strenuous hikes that really are a ton of fun, but you're going to make sure that we all have the same kind of level of fitness to have no disappointing experiences. Married for 25 years to an artist/gallerist wife who has a gallery in Lucerne. So swing on over when you are in Lucerne, you're welcome. 3 boys between 25 and 21. I have had a very loyal 4-legged hiking buddy that you see on this picture, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but she came along, my gosh, on so many really strenuous hikes, and I hope that wasn't the cause for her death. I think it's more the cause for her longevity, but then she had a cancer, so that was a really sad moment. And below are just a few more hobbies. So let's dive right in about the compelling reasons why you may want to start hiking or continue what you're doing when it comes to hike, and may add some additional elements to your outdoor experiences. Take it from this guy. He's an old pro from way up there in the mountains. Obviously, I mean, we all know about this one. It's a big one. it decreases your risk of heart disease. And it's all backed up, by the way, through scientific clinical data. None of this is just taken from thin air at 8,000 meters. This is all based on facts and figures. So even just doing it for 2.5 hours a week cuts your risk by 30%. If that alone is not a compelling reason to start hiking, I don't know what is. That's a biggie. It clearly also reduces your risk for diabetes and cancer, lowers your blood pressure and cholesterol, all good. Promotes definitely mental sharpness for multiple reasons that we talked about a little bit earlier. And oh yes, there are many, many, many more. Let's keep going. Here is another one. It increases your mood. So usually hiking up, mainly up, because that's you're still in this kind of anticipatory mood of, oh my gosh, once I reach this amazing peak, I have awesome views. That's your incentive to make it. But you can also still apply to your way down, although that's where most accidents happen, on the way down, because you're relaxed, you let go, you had your high. But in both cases, up or down, you clearly can have these mood elevating experiences and endorphins. It clearly reduces your stress and clears your mind. I'm sure most of the hikers who are dialing in here would confirm that. You have fantastic sleep quality. You won't wake up, no stress, improved mood. It eases joint pain because motion, there's nothing worse than sitting 9 to 5 in an office chair. That's the best thing you can do is move, move, move. And this, especially uphill, gives you a it's a preventive way of hopefully avoiding osteoarthritis, particularly in your knees and your hips, where you get the most workout. And you may want to need some more convincing. Well, here you go. It's a very easy thing to get used to because it has absolutely a zero learning curve. Obviously, all you need is this: a pair of solid boots with good soles and a solid backpack. That's it. And so, of course, what we put into that backpack, we're going to go into that a bit later. But everybody can really pick it up. It's not rocket science. It's straightforward. It can be done anywhere. As I said, you can even do it in the city. As an example, San Francisco has a lot of hills, and there you get a fantastic workout just walking around the city. And we have so many walkable cities in Europe and anywhere else in the world. And it's super joint friendly compared to running, for instance, or jogging, as you see in that statistic here. Compared to 30 to 70% of runners, only 5 to 8% of hikers do have exercise-related injuries because you don't have this crucial impact on your joints when you're hiking, particularly on the way up. On the way down, you may want to use poles to lessen the impact on your joints, or you just simply take a gondola down. I mean, I do that every once in a while too. It's really good if you just work hard on the way up and take a decent gondola right down. Perfectly okay. Here is another one that's based on a study from UC Berkeley. I don't have to read it, it's self-explanatory. Number 14, my goodness, another super compelling reasons to start hiking is the length that you can add to your life, to our existence here. Look at this one, 15 minutes a day equals 2 more years. I mean, what more compelling sales argument do you need? 1 hour a day is more than 4 extra years. I mean, that's really something. If nothing else, that argument alone should get you going. Also, a lot of times going by yourself is really a fantastic experience, especially if you go out to a non-crowded area. It just gives you this quality me time that all of us need in our hectic days and lives. And it's a great way to simply get to know yourself, you know, your other sides that may not come out when you're in your day-to-day routines, even when you're with your family, at work and what have you. Every once in a while, doing a solo hike has multiple benefits. It clears your head, it relaxes you, it makes you reflect on your life, and they may even turn out to give you ideas for ventures, you know, start your own activities, your own company, what have you. Oftentimes the best ideas, in my opinion at least, are really popping into your brain while you're hiking, or in my case, swimming too. So want more benefits? Well, here we go. One more, right, coming up here. It's a super social activity. That's the antidote to what I just mentioned. Whether it is with your team or whether it's with your four-legged friend, doesn't matter. It's really deepens friendships, builds bonds. Nuno is on this picture. He's also on the call. Remember that one, Nuno? That was on the Brison above Lake Lucerne. But it's a really fantastic social experience, especially also when you do multi-day hikes or hut-to-hut trekking. It's just incomparable. And the Stanford study on top of that also shows that hiking and walking folks generate twice as many creative responses to problems as their sitting cohorts. So again, it really kind of activates the creative side of humans when you're out there in nature for some reason. It must be the vitamin D from the sun. It may also be the super healthy air. The bottom line is it really sparks creativity in multiple ways. It also helps you put things into perspective, what really matters at the end of the day in our lives before we have to leave this planet. So you kind of focus on the bigger picture, and the day-to-day nutty, gritty political crap you leave best down in the valley when you go up there, and really can focus on, at the end of the day, what matters. And in terms of happiness, making others happy and what have you. So it really brings things down to a common denominator, I think, up there. It strengthens your immune system. We talked about that. It makes you more resistant across the board. More reasons coming up. It's, as we said at the very beginning, it puts yourself to your physical and psychological limits. Again, mainly the case during longer tours or more strenuous one-day tours. That's a very helpful experience, I think, also for everyone. Results in permanent long-term benefits for body, mind, and soul. Clearly, it does. And it's simply inspiring, honestly, just being out there, taking it all in, the sunrise, the sunset, the sunshine, there's the vitamin D that you get free of charge. And also, again, your hiking companions, you share all of that ideally, and these memories last a lifetime. So let's talk a bit about different levels of hiking. I mean, clearly in Europe, we have scales that differ oftentimes from country to country, but overall, this is the scale that's being followed in most of Euroland. So T1 through T6, a T2 or a T3 that you have described right here are the ones that most commonly are being done by most folks. You know, the terrain on number T3, it's partially exposed areas. You still don't have to be afraid of heights. You still can do it. And, you know, gravel plains, pathless, steep terrain. What is required is a good steady footing and good trekking shoes. You also need average navigation skills and basic alpine experience. So I think for most folks, a T2 or a T3 hike is just fine to get a good workout and to also get get good strength exercise at the same time. When you get into T4, that's where it gets already a bit more challenging, I would say, more technical perhaps. You got to really be able to read maps. You got to be able to, in a foggy situation, let's say, being able to find your way through fern fields, perhaps snow-covered glacier passages. So that's a bit more of a challenge that you can perhaps initially do with a mountain guide if you have never done it. Or you can just do it in a group with at least one group member being more experienced than the team. And you see it also here in the requirements. Terrain assessment and good navigation skills are key. And then T5 and T6, that's super technical, where you already have to have some knowledge about carabines, glacial access, and so forth. And I don't do that stuff myself anymore. Did it in the old days when we did mountain climbing camps and so forth, but this is no longer fun, I must admit. Now, Harvard University has done a risk, not a risk, but a level of investment, physical investment assessment in terms of how you define easy to very fast hiking when it comes to the definition of the term brisk. And again, it all is a function of your pace, how you define that, and then how it feels to you. And that's very individual, depending on our individual physical shape that we are in. Easy is obviously very leisurely, light effort. You can still breathe easily. You can even sing a song. It's not very much of an effort, really. Moderate, it's a bit more some effort, but you can still breathe more heavily, but you can still talk in full sentences. That's always a very good test. If you can still talk to your buddies in full sentences, that means it's still fairly, leisurely or not yet a huge effort. Now, the actual definition of brisk, and that's already a good cardio workout, you walk a bit faster, uphill or flat, and it's kind of a moderate effort. You can still talk in full sentences, but you need to take more breath while doing so. Fast, that's clearly a harder effort, more breathless. And then very fast is what I mentioned earlier. When you do your own, better don't do this in a group, because you won't be very social, since you're mainly focusing on doing a heavy duty cardio workout where it's really all about performance. You want to just beat the official time. In my case, my goal is always to beat it by 50%. So if the sign says 4 hours, you want to make it in 2 hours, which means you got to go super fast. And then if you do that, you have reached your objective, your personal objective. So let's now go into how to best prepare and plan for your hike. So before your hike, obviously, ideally, you should train your key muscle groups that you will be engaging when you are doing a hike. The obvious ones are your quads, your hams, your core, as well as your large back muscles, both in terms of strength exercises, but also, of course, supported by cardio moves and cardio exercises always. Swimming is fantastic for that, but so is yoga when it comes to flexibility, which is super important as well for balance when you are exposed to narrow chutes or edges on mountains and ridges. It's good to have good balance. And I think yoga is one of the best you can do. Ideally, you do it daily or every other day. Develop your personal yoga routine. Has also many mental benefits, but particularly for flexibility, yoga is a great one in prep for hiking. Cardio is an obvious one. The more you do, the better. But by always having an increasing level of cardio workouts on ellipticals, which I like the most because you can go forward and backward, which uses different muscles in your routine. And also, it's always great before you do your first hike and you haven't done it in a while, and you get new boots or even a new backpack, do a test drive. Don't do a strenuous hike right away. Pick a trail that is more humane when it comes to length and steepness, so you can at least get used to your new boots. Once you have a long hike, it's too late to test out new boots, and you may get blisters. That's key. And you may also consider hiking poles just to support you especially on the way down, that you don't have this heavy impact on your joints. So these are super helpful both on the way up, but particularly on the way down, to alleviate potential joint pain or avoid it altogether. There is a fantastic website that you can plan your hike. It's called hiker.org, where you get pictures and descriptions from previous hikers who did the same trail that you may be undertaking. They rank it, they describe it, they add photos, so you can really get a realistic picture of what you are going into before undertaking your own adventure. So I can highly recommend this particular website. I use it all the time when I go into untested waters, so to speak, or unknown territory. It's a great one. Before your hike, clearly it's super important how you fuel up for your energy. There are some obvious ones, protein-rich snacks. It's good to have that ready, that your body will have to work super hard. So the more you can get in terms of these goodies that I list here, the better. And also before your hike, it's great to drink a lot of just water or energy water with electrolytes. That's the best. But in my opinion, just plain good old water, flat water, not with carbonization in there, is clearly the best, straightforward. Now, what should you take with you? I just mentioned here the most obvious, the most mission critical pieces that you should put into your backpack. None of these are super surprising, but you always have to plan for the worst case scenario, like a sudden change in weather, or a teammate may get injured, or you may have to reach someone out there to pick you up by helicopter. All of that can happen. But also for the enjoyment, take binoculars so you can observe wildlife. You may even want to take one of these. I don't see myself right now, so hopefully you see these. That's one of these headlamps in case that you don't make it back on time. You have at least some of these with you, with enough battery headlamps in case you have to put up camp somewhere in the wild. These headlamps are super helpful. And water, water, water. Can't say it enough. It's good to drink as much as you can, just to be preemptive when it comes to dehydration. That's the worst experience you can have. The day of your hike, naturally do warm up, do a stretch routine. That's always super helpful so that your muscles are loosened up as you embark on your hike. In changing weather conditions, because as you know, in the mountains, weather can change super fast, much faster than in the flatlands. It's good to check your radar map in your apps regularly, just to make sure you're not being surprised suddenly out of left field by a thunderstorm. Pace yourself, that's a big one. If you are in the zone, you can go on forever, and everybody has their own zone that they want to experience, but yours should be the one that you find out first. But then when you are a team, you should always adjust to the zone of the slowest member, let's say, or just a person who may not do this regularly, because they cannot adjust to yours if you're faster. So again, it goes back to this whole principle of solidarity, that you take care of the weakest link in the chain and adjust to his or her pace, where she or he feels comfortable in their zone. Be smart in the heat, especially in the summer. Try to avoid southern or western exposed terrain, since that's where the sun is strongest. You can pick routes that have more of a northeasterly sort of exposure to minimize the direct sun exposure. That's one way to get around that challenge. And I said earlier, actually, here you have it in writing, just always adjust to the weakest team member. That's absolutely key. And preserve, oh, that's a big one, by the way. Preserve energy for the descent. As I said, because that's when we tend to relax. We think we have reached our objective, our goal. It's now time to chillax. May have had even some glue wine, or who knows, some champagne at the top. And now we are just lightheaded, easygoing, and are so relieved. And that's exactly when accidents occur, because you still need to be super focused on the way down, which is typically a bigger challenge than going up. So keep that in mind when you come down. Don't get too loose, for lack of a better term. The day of your hike, still, watch out for any symptoms that you or your team members may have symptoms of heat exhaustion, altitude sickness, lightheadedness, nausea, and so forth. Could be a function, again, of just not having had enough water, or an inherent, some folks have this inherently, this tendency of feeling altitude sickness more quickly than others. So it's always good to always ask, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Want to have a break? Then you slow down. We had this a few times, which was painful. I remember at the Don du Midi with a friend, we had to go back, not so much because of this, but because of weather conditions, and that was super painful. Or once in the Sierras, a good friend of mine, suddenly, unexpectedly, he never had it, had altitude sickness at about 4,300 meters. And we had to go back. We had about another 40 minutes to go to the peak. But again, solidarity kicks in. You got to go back with them just to make sure nothing bad happens. And then usually every 100 meters or so down, the symptoms improve dramatically fast. So it's a quick fix. Drink water regularly. I can't say it enough. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now. Cheers to everyone. Really good water. It must be a good bottle. 1986. Yep, that was a good year for water. So I'll take this all in. And also, by the way, when you drink water, add this together. Nuts. Nuts is one of the best things you can eat during a hike, because it gives you this energy, natural protein, super healthy. It fills you up. And it just tastes good. So keep that in mind. Water and lots of nuts is the best, and raisins. Enjoy the elements. Always pause, reflect, take interviews. And these are those moments you will never forget, especially when you can share it with your best friends. Because fellow nature enthusiasts have the same appreciation you do for nature. And I think it really deepens good bonds, good friendships that can last a lifetime. But also solo, it's fun to do it. Keep quiet, because you may see wildlife. That's another enriching experience, adding to the experience of your hike. Then again, don't be too quiet, because if you go to areas like the Sierra Nevada or the Rockies, where you have still lots of wildlife roaming around, from bears to wolves and others, and you suddenly surprise them, they may become quite vicious towards you. I mean, every year we can hear about attacks, not just from bears, but even from cows, believe it or not. In the Alps, it happens regularly, when the mother cows protect their young vigorously. And if they perceive you as being a danger to their young, even these happy Swiss cows can become quite nasty and run straight at you. Or when I was hiking still with my four-legged hiking buddy, they sure didn't like her, and came roaming at us in a horde of like 40 or so cows, and we were running from them. So you always have to be watchful if you are also hiking with a dog when you are around cows, not just Swiss cows, but I presume every cow. A good trick also to avoid altitude sickness, of course, is acclimatation. So if you're there early, acclimate yourself at least 1 or 2 days prior to undertaking a strenuous high altitude hike. It really lessens the chances that you will experience altitude sickness or other unpleasant symptoms of not having properly adjusted to a base camp or an elevation again. So do that if you can. If you're on your own, you tend to want to listen to your favorite tunes or some classical music on the way up, but only use one earbud if you're in the wilderness solo without any more people around you, for that very same reason, to avoid unpleasant encounters with wildlife that you may regret for life. So only use at most one earbud when you're hiking alone. And in the Alps, at least, when you see a sign that has these blue, white, blue markings, don't go there, because that's usually a level T5 or even 6 hike, where you're gonna be able to go through narrow cliffs. You may have some technical experiences that are needed, or you even may need some technical equipment to make it. So avoid those. Stick to the white, red, white markings, which are regular trails, at least in most of Europe, that's the case. After your hike, use the so-called RICE method: rest, ice, compression, elevation, especially when you have some muscle cramps or you feel some tension in your muscles from the strenuous hike. That's a good one. Stretch them. Ideally use an infrared sauna, or just any sauna really, to loosen up. Swimming is fantastic to do for a quick recovery. An easy one that we all can do even without hiking on a daily basis is take on an extra load of magnesium. That will accelerate the healing process for your muscles. Of course, if you can, take a deep tissue massage or relaxation massage. That's of course the treat, the mother of all treats. Go to the whirlpool to loosen up tight spots. And of course, last but not least, go out there, invite your friends to review what you have just experienced. Enjoy the moments, reflect on what you all shared together in nature. Again, these moments last a lifetime. And it's great to get back to them and talk about them years from now. Now here, I think that section I may want to skip, because again, I'm not sure from where most of the attendees are coming. Wessam, I'm not sure if you have a visibility, how many nations we now have represented on this particular session. But if you're interested in some of these suggestions, contact me anytime. These are about mainly the Alps. And I'm happy to give you some more suggestions or ideas where you can go. In conclusion, what I would like to share with you are some other thought-provoking quotes from well-known naturalist people who love nature, who are hikers themselves, or write about mountains and nature altogether. There is no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. Isn't that a good one? Because it's true. You should prepare for any potential scenario out there and therefore pack accordingly. That's a very practical quote, actually. Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. That goes back to this case study I told you about my friend who had altitude sickness. Because down you always have to get somehow. So it's good to be super realistic on the way up. As soon as you feel, dizziness, weakness, tiredness, you may just have to say, okay, not this time around. Let's do this again next year. It's simply safer that way than risking something that you may regret for a lifetime. One more last page of quotes. I like this one too, the one here in the middle top. Without new experiences, something inside of us sleeps. The sleeper must awaken. And again, being out there, doing a hike is just about as intense of an experience with the elements as you can get, quite frankly. And the good thing is this experience, the reflection of this experience will last a lifetime. And I think this one too, we feel we are all part of nature. So if you're in it, you experience it. It's really that quote that says it. Nature is not a place to visit. It is home. We are all part of it. And we need it. So I hope there were some practical elements in here that you can apply next time you do a hike. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And perhaps once you come to Switzerland, let me know, we can do a hike together. It was great to meet you all virtually and happy to answer any questions, as I mentioned. Wessam?
Yes, I'm here. 1 second.
All right.